If you're doing so well that everyone knows you're the broker of the year or broker of the summer or the agent of the summer, then if you were considering making a move, jump. Now's the time.
So usually on the show, we have like a top performing realtor, someone who's doing, 80 transactions a month, something crazy like that. But today, I have my friend Dan on because I was afraid that if I didn't have him on the show, he was going to beat me up. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter. He's one of the best recruiters I've ever met in the entire real estate industry. He owns a private equity firm, and he's just an all-around great guy. So Dan Nieto, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Dan. So I kind of want to set this up a little bit in a different way. So usually I'm talking to people that are doing the sales, but today I'm talking to the guy who gets the salespeople into an organization. And I thought that this would be a really fun episode because I've gotten to know you, had the privilege of getting to know you over the last year or so. And where I get a lot of questions when I'm doing realtor meetings, when I'm doing lender meetings, is people want to know how they can hire better. Or the question I'm getting more than anything in the last month with all the crazy NAR commission lawsuit stuff is, how do I know when it's time to move companies? How do I choose a better company? How do I do my due diligence? How do I make that decision? And I know that you have helped hire over 1,000 salespeople in your career. You've gotten well over $2 to $3 billion in sales for the companies that you've worked for. And thankfully now I'm privileged to work with you. So I wanted to just have you on the show today and get your expertise when it comes to all things hiring and recruiting.
Well, I appreciate the invite, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you as well. And I was able to meet your lovely wife as well. So you're a great guy, and I'm honored to be here. And I'm ready to have some fun. Let's do this.
So let's just dive right in. If a real estate agent or a salesperson is looking to make a move, or they're curious, like, when should they look to make a move and when should they not look to make a move?
So it's a great question. And I think in real estate right now, it's a question a lot of people are asking. We're hitting a 30-year low, almost 2 years in a row in this industry, and in real estate, in mortgages. And so a lot of people could be down upwards 70, 80% of their income. And usually what happens is when you're not making as much money, you start looking at two things. You look at, am I at the right place, at the right company, and am I doing the right things? And most people will first defer to am I at the right place? Because everyone thinks they're doing the right things, right? That's just natural. So I think the best time to look outside of where you're at is really when there's no pressure to make a move. So that way you can take your time, you can do your due diligence, you can talk to as many people, as many companies. And I think it's healthy to talk to other companies. I think, I do this for a living, right? So I encourage people to look elsewhere. And if they find something better than where they're at, then they now have to make a serious decision. Sometimes people look elsewhere and they find they're at the best place. And that's great. Now you're confident you can stay. You don't have to have this looming over your head any longer. But I do think that people should explore options, and you have to look at what your needs and wants are, and you have to prioritize what are the 3 to 5 most important things in your business that you need for you to be successful. And if your company is falling a little short, and maybe another company is probably making that kind of promise, of course you have to make sure they deliver on that, then I think that's when you have to start seriously consider making a move. But when you're used to making X and you make 50 to 60% less than X, are you doing the right things? Of course, a big part of it you can't control because it's the market, and the market has shifted in a downward way. But then you got to see what else is out there.
I kind of like that. So you mentioned a couple things I want to dive a little deeper on. So you mentioned, your business is down, and obviously you don't want to make a rash decision and just jump ship because the grass is greener on the other side. Right. But if you haven't looked at the other side in a while, what would be a good way to figure out, is it you, is it the market, or is it your company? And kind of like, how do you balance those out, right? Because like all of us could try harder, right? But sometimes like we might not be at the same company now than we were when we first started.
Yeah, and I don't say this at all to disparage anyone. I think I'm guilty of it too. We all think we're doing a lot of the right things, even if we're not. So the first person, is it me? It's really hard for people to come to that conclusion that it's me, right? although we can all admit we probably could do better, and we could have a coach and maybe work harder and work smarter and all this other stuff. But then it's just natural. It's natural instinct to defer and maybe blame somebody else or something else. So if it's not exactly me, then it has to be the market. And there's a lot of truth to this. Now, 3-4 years ago, if you weren't doing great, it wasn't the market. I promise you that. 5 years ago, it wasn't the market. But right now, there's something to be said that the market has shifted. It's demand is different. Inventory has obviously been a big concern. Values are different. Rates, obviously, there's a lot of people who are just on the shelf because they're not willing to make a move right now. And there's a saturation in this business right now. So is it the market? Maybe. Then you look, well, it's got to be my company. My company's not providing X, and it's not providing Y, and it's not providing Z. And it's really, I think people need to really take a serious look at those three. Am I doing everything right? And by the way, if I do the same things I'm doing now at another company, is anything going to change? So am I doing it? And then is the company supporting me in this really tough time right now in this industry? And then, of course, the market, you just can't control. You can't predict it. You can't control it. You just have to roll with how it is. There are still people, as down as the market's been, in either the real estate side or the mortgage side, that are putting up great numbers. So what are they doing? And why am I not doing that? So I think that's the self-accountability part is really hard. Find someone who's 20 pounds overweight who wants to lose weight. It's tough when they say it's me. I'm just lazy. I mean, very hard do people say I'm just lazy. Eventually they'll come to the conclusion. You know what they'll say? A lot of stress, man. It's a lot of stress, and I stress eat. And, it's been cold. So, I mean, how do I work out and run outside in the cold? I mean, it's really hard. Business, I got to work so hard. I don't have as much time to work out. And, and my wife or spouse, they bring a lot of snacks to the table. And, COVID, oh my God, COVID, I gained 40 pounds. I know people who had COVID and during the COVID season, and they came back with a 12-pack stomach because they didn't take this.
Right. There's always going to be an excuse. And sometimes the market is like that diet excuse. It's the COVID excuse. It's all of those things. What I find really interesting, though, whether you look at things from you mentioned to look at yourself first, start at home, and then look at your company and then the market second. I find it interesting because I think a lot of agents right now, the successful ones, have pivoted in their business and are trying something differently. They've pivoted to react to the market. And I think what that means for realtors and lenders is they're now trying to create the opportunities for their clients rather than being a passive salesperson, letting those deals come to them. So my question for them would be, now that you've pivoted, has your company pivoted with you?
That's right.
And if you believe that they have, then you're probably in a great place.
Yep.
If you believe that you're changing and adapting to the new market, but your company's still doing the same old thing, that's where I see a problem forming. And that's where I think then we want to start interviewing, researching first and then interviewing, which makes a lot of sense.
I would agree. I work at Neighborhood Loans, and Neighborhood Loans, like all the other companies out there, have struggled over the past few years. And what did the company do during the downtimes? They had more sales rallies. They had more coaching ability, whether it's Zoom or at some of these rallies. They continued to do individual coaching. They inspired you. So the market was really down. And to your point, did the company do what they needed to do to support you during the downtime? Yes, because companies are struggling too, right? So it's got to be a joint effort. And but back to the original part, if you haven't looked in a while, companies change, cultures change. I talk to people every day that they say, this isn't the company we were 5 years ago. We were a tight-knit group. We got too big. We got too corporate. We got too driven by objectives and rules. And it's made it different. I don't recognize this company. There's mergers and acquisitions. Now it's bifurcated leaders. And so it's difficult. So sometimes you just have to pause, look outside real quick. It's not cheating on your company. If you just want to, I don't consider it as you're leaving your company. It's you're trying to prove that the current company you're at is the best one. And the best way
it's kind of like validation. It's not cheating, it's validation.
100%. I have no intentions of leaving. So I'm going to find 5 things about my competitors just to see where they're at. And then I'm hopeful that I won't find anything in those 5 that's better than where I'm at. And now, as you said, I'm validated. I will now not look around for 3 to 4 years because I don't have to. But there's something to be said about staying stagnant and not knowing what else is out there. I say it all the time. How do you know you're at the best place unless you've given yourself a time to look?
Well, and the other piece of that too is like there's something to be said for when you start looking around and seeing what else is out there. You do have the opportunity to bring that to your current company and actually affect change at a place you're already at. I can think of so many people at our organization who came to the company, they sat still for a couple months, they learned how we do things, etc. But then they said, "Hey, there was this one really good thing that this other company has," and we look at it, and the ones that make sense we're able to do, and
That's right.
then everybody benefits.
Yep.
So let's flip this around really quickly because there's also a lot of brokers, recruiters out there who are looking and saying, how can I make sure I'm hiring the right people in this market? So if let's flip this around to your shoes. You're the recruiter for company A. How are you using this market, and what's your strategy for recruiting right now? Like, what kind of questions are you asking? Who are you targeting, etc.?
Well, whether you're on the mortgage side or the real estate side, recruiting really doesn't shift. It's every company at some point wants to recruit. I think the first thing you have to think about is what is your goal? What is your objective in recruiting? If you're looking for a top producer to join your team, then you need to know who the top producers are. And you could do what we call geofencing. Get a fence around that market that you're in, right? In my case, let's say it's Dallas. Go find the top 50 realtors out there and find what their numbers are, which there's tons of software that'll let you know what other people are doing, and figure out what they're doing and figure out who they are. You now have LinkedIn, have their name, you link in with them, you connect with them, you get to see where they've worked, you can see what their history. You start studying your people, your recruits, your prospective recruits. You don't know the recruits yet, you haven't called them yet, and I think you have to do a lot of study and prep work before you make that phone call and that introduction. Now, 24 years ago when I started in the game, we didn't have any of this technology. We were literally cold calling people. I could be on the phone for an hour with someone and not know that they'd never done a loan in their lives. I could be on the phone with someone for an hour and not realize, oh my God, they're literally 10 times bigger than our top producer at our current company. We're not sure we can even hire them. Now we don't have to worry about that. You can figure out who it is. So what's your objective? If your objective is to find top producers, then find top producers and get to know who they are and start networking and start creating a relationship with them. Recruiting is not transactional. You don't make 10 calls and 10 people turn you off, and then you make another 10 and 10 turn you off, and maybe another 10 and one says, sure, I'll sit down with you. That's a transaction. You want to make 30 relationships. Find out about them, their business, maybe see if they're willing to help you show, if they don't want to come join you, then show me what you're doing because you're doing something really well. Maybe we can get together and you can show me. Then some people don't necessarily want the top producer. Maybe they want a junior. Okay, well, let's start figuring out how we're going to do that. Juniors are usually juniors to top producers. You're going to still know who those top producers are. Find out who's on their teams and figure out what it is you're looking for, because the best part about recruiting and the best recruiters, they have a plan for what they want out of this cycle. In certain markets, we're looking for a branch manager, not an individual LO. In other markets, we need an LO. In some markets, we need an LOA, loan officer assistant. So whatever that market is, we have a plan, we have to have a structure, and we have to now execute on that plan. So a lot of times people are like, yeah, I really want to grow my team. Then you say, how? And with who? What kind of person? And they're like, I don't know. Well, if you don't know that answer and you're about to start making some cold calls, that's not a good start. So you really need to geofence the market with what you're specifically looking for.
I love it. So what I'm kind of hearing here is if you're a broker and you're looking at this market and saying, what should my recruiting strategy be? You're almost already behind the game, because that implies that you didn't have the discipline to recruit in the past when it was easy, and now you certainly probably are behind now that it's becoming a little bit more difficult.
Correct.
Okay, so let's talk about again. Let's flip back to the employee side, right? Like if you're the realtor and you've decided that you're going to start interviewing, you're going to make a move. What are things that you can do to make this less painful of a situation? So we already covered point one, which is don't move out of desperation.
Right.
Don't move when the pressure's on. But other than that, like how can a diligent realtor, diligent salesperson, do this in the least painful way possible? Because I know that's what scares everyone, and that's what puts them off making a move sometimes when they really need to.
So you're talking no longer as the recruiter. You're talking as someone who might be making.
Yeah, I'm back to the individual. Like, hey, I'm a salesperson. I'm doing $15 to $20 million a year in sales. I'm thinking about making a move, but it seems really painful. Like, what would your advice be to do this the right way?
So never make it a rash decision. Never. First of all, no one likes making a move. I mean, if I was going from a 3-bedroom house to a giant mansion, even that's a painful move. No one physically likes to make a move. You're changing your website, you're changing your email address, you're changing, in some cases, your phone number, you're changing the branding behind you. I mean, no one likes to make a move, but people need to make moves if they're not satisfied, if they're complacent, if their business isn't growing, and you just have to look long term. So the first part is, like anything else, like a diet, like a plan, like an exercise plan, you have to write out what the plan is going to be. I've now, in your scenario, I think I've now decided I'm going to make a move. I just don't know exactly where yet or with you, but I know I have to make a move. You have to put the plan together as to what am I looking for? Like, what are the deal breakers that I must have to, and it's not exactly financial, right? It's not in your split necessarily. It's more, what do I need? Is it a marketing structure? Is it a marketing campaign? Is it joint marketing? Is it the technology? Is it software? Find out what those things you are that you need. And then you just have to start mentally getting yourself ready to ultimately pull that painful plug, which is to tell your current employer that you're leaving, which may or may not be painful, but sometimes it is. But then you got to tell your entire network that you're leaving. And they're all going to say, why? Because really, we live in a social media world. So Joe Blow from Keller Williams has been talking how great Keller Williams is for the past 10 years. Now, all of a sudden, Joe Blow is going to tomorrow say, hey, I'm now at Really One. It's the best company ever. And everyone's going to say, well, what happened to the last one? So you just have to start preparing yourself for what is a whirlwind. And that's why no one likes change, because it's not just easy. You can't just flip a switch and all of a sudden, hey, everything's great. It's hard. It's a whole rebrand to yourself, your community, your network, your clients, everyone. So really, it's like, I personally like to have a sheet of paper before I make any kind of move. When I change my diet, these are the things I need. When I change my workout routine, these are the things I need to do. When I change my business, right? In 24 years, I've really only, I think, made 2 moves. I might have 7 different companies because of mergers and acquisitions, but I've only said I quit or I'm resigning twice in 24 years. And so, but I've been through that. And then you have to now prepare yourself for the inevitable. It's painful. No one likes to make a move. No one wants to make a move. But sometimes if you don't make moves, your business isn't going to move either. And that's the most important thing to all of us, right? It's why we do this, to provide to our families and to provide for our communities.
Neighborhood Realtor Podcast is proudly made possible by the support of our sponsors, Treadstone Funding and Neighborhood Loans, 2 amazing Midwest mortgage companies that now have offices all around the country. If you're a real estate agent looking to partner with an amazing lender, DM me at MattMusket88 and I'll connect you with someone in your market. If you're a lender and you want to join the right mortgage company, DM me and I'll connect you as well. I think, one thing you said at the beginning of that was that you can't lead with asking about comp.
Yeah.
Commission, compensation, basis points, whatever comp means for you. I find that to be really interesting, right? Because when I talk to people about when they're leaving, they're either talking about 2 things. They're talking about comp or they're talking about leads, which is in essence free comp.
That's right.
And so if those are the number 2 things that most people are making their decisions on, what are some of the things that you found are the right questions to ask or the right reasons to make a decision? Obviously, we have things like operations, marketing, other stuff, but what are some of the other big ones that you're surprised don't get asked about more often?
Well, to go backwards on comp, comp is a shiny penny. And, if you're making X right now and someone offers you X plus 2, sounds great. Then you go to a company that can't provide the business you want to do. X plus 2 might be 0, right? So more comp on no business or on poor service or on poor technology will actually give you less comp because you now have less business. So I think it's absolutely foolish. Comp is a byproduct of the work you put in and the work your company puts in with you. That's what I think it is. So I've never made a move because of comp. I'll never make a move because of comp, although I'll put myself in a position to make more comp based on my work efforts and the company that I chose. So, but to answer your question, what are the things that are important to me? I think first and foremost, especially in a down market, is company stability, 1, and 2, it's going to go hand in hand, so it might be 1B, is the leadership. I really want to get to know how stable this company's been, because the one thing that's not stable is this market and this industry. You saw what happened with the NAR settlement recently. That's instability at its highest, right? In the lending world, we had something very similar in 2008 when the comp regulation changes happened in 2008 due to Dodd-Frank. So we've been through this before. So that's unstable as it is. Or unstable. So if that's unstable, find a company that is stable, that is going to go through these ups and downs and is going to survive these ups and downs. Then talk to the leadership. Find out the CEOs, the executives, the presidents, the head of sales, and see what their vision is. See how they've overcome an unstable market. See what they're doing for their folks. Those are super key. Both of those are more important than what your commission plan is going to be. I'd like to talk third to some of these top producers. Assuming I'm a top producer, I want to talk to the top producers. How long have you been there? Why did you make the move? Where did you come from? And do you plan on staying here, and why? Those are only questions you need to ask. That's it. You'll know where they went, where they are, where they're going, where they came from, and you're good.
Why? What I really like about that too is when you interview another producer from the company you're thinking about, those people by and large don't gain anything by you coming over. So they're primed to be honest with you, right? Like, unless they're part of the recruiting team that's bringing you on, they're likely not getting paid on you, or they're not getting a split of you. So I think it can be really, really eye-opening to see what they think. And the people who are truly passionate about their company are going to give you a raving answer. And the companies that have a pie is small mentality, where they don't want another salesperson around, that's going to show you the level of toxicity in the company that you're possibly approaching.
100%. That's right. I mean, for the most part, there's been a lot less smiles in the last 2 years than there have been in most people's careers. So when you talk to some folks, and again, if you talk to our current organization, we've had 2 bad years as well. And the smiles on their face, the positivity, the outlook of where we're headed as an industry, as a company, is really refreshing, and it makes me want to run through a wall for these guys. And that's what you're going to get when you ultimately, as much as companies are interviewing you, you're interviewing the companies, right? As much as we just said no one likes change and you hate making a move, then make this your last move if you can. You can't control it always, right? You can start somewhere and 6 months later they go under. Oops. But you can try your best to say, I want to hang my hat here. I want to run through a wall for this company. Will you run through a wall for me? And show me what you did for your folks when the times were tough. And I don't mean financially write them a check. That doesn't happen. But like, what do we do? What do you do when things are down? What do you do when things are up? What is your way of leadership? You want to be able to, when you put your head in that pillow that night before you make the move, where you tell your employer you're leaving, you want to be super confident. There's a lot of people who tippy-toe into their new job day one. And I see it with my own eyes. I feel it. And I think, you didn't do due diligence. I mean, if you're this scared coming into your first day, you're not ready, right? It's like walking into a scary movie and then you freak out because it's a scary movie. You need to know it's a scary movie. There's going to be a cat that's going to jump out the screen. You have to be prepared for this. So if you're not prepared for the move, then you really didn't do any of the things we've been talking about so far.
I love that. So it's kind of interesting, right? Because I'm hearing a lot of this is due diligence, it's personal responsibility, and it is a lot of work for the individual person. But something that I've seen a lot of when people are making a move, when they're more successful and that transition is less painful, is that these people have gone ultra deep with their relationships in the past 3 months prior to the move, so that they don't need to be as hesitant of people being shocked and saying I wish you were still at XYZ brokerage. Now you're at this place. It's more about you than the company.
Correct.
And so I see this a lot with real estate agents where, they were doing a crappy job in the first place, staying in touch with their contacts, staying in touch with their VIP channel referral sources. And then when they leave, they're adding even more confusion to that and even more uncertainty, versus someone like you or I. We're in deep relationships with our top 20 people who send us the majority of our business, who we're able to do stuff with. And because of that, when we make a move, it's about us, right? I know that Dan is a great guy and I trust you personally. And if the sky fell and you were at a different company, I would still feel that way and choose to work with you and want you to help me with recruiting. And I think that is the biggest message that I really want agents to take away from this, is that you are in control to make sure that you are in a deep relationship and not a fleeting relationship with your clients. And that will make your move, if you're going to make one, that much easier. And it'll make it probably less about the market and more about you.
That's right. If your clients know, like, and trust you, you should be working every day very hard to make sure your clients know, like, and trust you, then a move will become much less painful.
So you mentioned something You mentioned a lot of excuses when we did our kind of pre-call and we were talking about this. And I thought it was really funny. So I wanted to kind of get back into it. But I think any recruiter has heard all of them. But I want the realtors listening to this to hear this. So when you're recruiting a top salesperson, what are the normal excuses that you hear of why now is not a good time? Because it's so funny because it literally covers the entire
Year.
sales career, or every sales season is encompassed in it. So what are those items that you typically hear?
It's the seasonality, and it's actually comical. So you recruit someone right now, and we're in April, right? Hey, listen, now's the time to make a move, and this goes both ways: realtor, loan officer, whatever. Well, I can't make a move. It's a spring market, right? It's not the right time. Spring market. I mean, in the past few months, depending where you live, it's been really cold, and there's no open houses. Now everyone's coming out. Okay, spring market. A couple months later, hey, we want to talk? We're in the middle of summer season, guys. Like summer. Who makes a move in the summer? We can't. Things are hot. And the summer season, this is the busiest part of the year. I can't make a move with a pipeline this big. Call me in the fall. Got it. Fall comes. Still finishing out my pipeline from the summer. It's just not exactly the right time. We're getting close, though. Okay, great. What's next? The winter market. I can't make a move during the holidays. I mean, I got vacations. There's Thanksgiving. There's Christmas. There's New Year's. There's so many things I got to do. Why don't you call me at the beginning of the year?
Christmas shopping, for God's sake, Dan.
Yeah. So call me at the beginning of the year. No problem. Call you at the beginning of the year. First of the year. Second, third, fourth, whatever. Hey, what's going on? It's a brand new year. I made my goals, my resolutions, and I have to at least give my company a shot to start because we've got a lot of goals coming in. Okay, cool. When do you want me to call you? Call me in a couple months. Guess where we are? We're at the spring market again. It's the same thing.
We're back to square one.
It's seasonal. And it's a reflex reaction. Why? Because people don't like making a move. However, I've seen some of the top producers leave in the middle of July with the biggest pipelines ever. Okay, so it's not the hot summer season. I mean, it is, but that's not why they didn't make a move. It's why they did make a move. If you're good, the season doesn't matter. You will be good wherever you are. If something's holding you back from making a move, make it now. If it happens to be Christmas week, make the move. It's okay. If it's New Year's, great, whatever. If you have New Year's resolutions, you don't owe it to that company if they're not giving it back to you. So do those same resolutions at your new place. But I think the biggest excuse is always timing. Now's not the right time. And it's really never the right time to make a move. You just have to do it.
So you mentioned when we were chatting before that this timing can actually come down to bite you in the butt, right? So if you try to time the market, there are a lot of ways that it can go wrong. And you mentioned before, you could actually become less valuable to the new company and lose a lot of negotiation power. How have you seen that play out?
All the time. So towards the end of the year and or the beginning of the year, people's numbers are typically down, right? I mean, it's factual. It's during the summers when people are doing more business, and during the winter is when they're doing less business. A lot has to do with the weather. And a lot has to do with the fact that buyers aren't exactly buying. And for that same reason, buyers aren't buying during the holidays, right? They want to stay at the same place. They don't want to move. So it's seasonal. I get it from the buyer standpoint, but of course it affects all of our numbers. So our pipeline really starts kicking up beginning of March, and it will go through probably September, right? Because August is still a hot summer month, and then the pipeline closes out September. And then when you get through October through February, it's typically slower. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
So you're an agent and you're doing a really good agent, 4, 5, 6 deals in the summer. Great. That's when you're more valuable to me. That's when me as a broker owner wants to hire you because you're doing so well. It might impact how
And it's a quick return, right? If I hire you at that time, I'm getting a really quick return on all of the onboarding expenses that I'm going to have to take out either way.
Absolutely. So it's like I'm the broker owner and I ask you, hey, Matt, what have you done the last 3 months? 13 homes. Oh my God, that's great. This is why I need you now. You're so valuable to me right now because it's summer months and because of what you just said that I might pay you more and I might give you an accelerated split and I might, hand you an LOA or an assistant that I frankly wouldn't have given a lot of people, but now's the right time. That same producer 5 months later, hey, what have you done the last couple months? Well, it's the winter. So I've only done like 3 homes this winter in the past 3 months. Oh, well, I want you. I promise you I'm not going to give you what I was going to give that guy, which was you 6 months ago. So I think when people try to time it to be in their benefit, they're not going to get the best thing. It's like, it's like in the NFL. It doesn't happen that often mid-season trades, but if you're a really hot player and you just got selected to the All-Star or the Pro Bowl and everything's going really well, you are very valuable to another team. And your current team thinks you're so valuable as well that they're going to get something in return for you. You start throwing a couple of interceptions and you're doing pretty bad and you get benched. Good luck with anyone trying to pick you up. Your own team doesn't want you. That's kind of what I'm trying to reference in this sense. If you're doing so well that everyone knows you're the broker of the year or broker of the summer or the agent of the summer, then if you were considering making a move, jump. Now's the time. Don't wait for things to slow down to then be like everybody else doing a few deals here and there.
I absolutely love that. So, and a good company is going to help you transition anyways. And I know you kind of mentioned it a couple times in the show now. If you're the broker, if you're the person doing the hiring, figuring out what your potential recruit's actual pain is, and then kind of offering them solutions to the pain other than just compensation is huge. I mean, you mentioned, hiring them an assistant or helping to find them an assistant. Obviously, hiring the salesperson is usually the hardest part. However, if you can easily hire those assistants and kind of have a lot of them trained up at any given time, that's what we do at our office. That's what my special talent is we find great people, we train them up so that our loan officers then have the help to close big numbers. So if you're a real estate broker out there, this is a huge opportunity, and I don't see this happening a lot out there in the market. Hire those marketing people, make the investments in the admins, make the investments in showing assistants that you can then use to lure in other producers from other office that feel that they could double their business if they had that support.
Some companies, like this one right here, Neighborhood Loans, I will tell you that 90-day honeymoon phase is so important. And we go out of our way to film almost 3 months worth of videos, short clips, podcasts. I have moved and all this marketing stuff. So everyone in your network knows you've made the move and why. And it's really impactful. We're in a social media world. We're in a like, dislike, thumbs up, heart, whatever all these things are on social media. That's the reality of where we are right now. So we have to be posting what we are doing. Some companies do that. You go to a company and you say, what's my marketing plan for my launch? What does that mean? Okay. If you don't know what that means, you might not be the right company for me. How are you going to handle my onboarding? What does my 90-day honeymoon look like? If they're like, what are you talking about? You come here and you do loans like we were doing, or homes like you were doing somewhere else. That might not be in your best interest. You should really have a company that will listen to what your needs and wants are. And if they can buy into that, then you're really good. But I think that onboarding launch for agents, for loan officers, for branch managers, for broker owners, for whatever it is, that 90-day honeymoon is so critical. Everyone needs to know, I made a move. Here's why. Here's why it's awesome. Here's how it benefits you, not just me. I made the move, but we made the move together. My network just made the move with me. And here's why it benefits you. And that's why, going back to commission, it's not about the comp plan, because your community doesn't care about your comp plan. They care about what can help them. I made a move because we have better products, we have better service, we have better operations, we have better marketing. We're going to joint market. Oh, that's why you made a move. I support your move. I made a move because I got paid a higher split. Congratulations.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, and that's not just recruiting, that's marketing in general, right? It always needs to be about the customer. And if you can't communicate that, probably wasn't the right decision anyways. This episode of The Neighborhood Realtor is proudly sponsored by Hirology. Hirology is a great system. We actually use it. It's been awesome for us. It's saved us a lot of money and helped us get better quality applicants. This software focuses on speed to hire, quality of applicants, and brings intelligence into your hiring process so that you are empowered to make better decisions. For more information on pricing and how this can work for you, check out the link in the podcast description. You mentioned, so you were one of the most disciplined guys I know. I think when I first met you, you were introduced to me as the guy that hadn't missed a workout in 1,600 days or something insane, even though you had some injury days, some crazy other stuff. So let's talk about the discipline of recruiting a little bit. And I know you oftentimes, you have it all time blocked, but you compare it more to fishing than a lot of other things. Walk me through how that works.
So recruiting is fishing. It's not catching, right? I think one of the biggest red flags is you talk to somebody in any field and they're like, yeah, get me out of here. That's such a red flag to me. If I'm going after a top producer, maybe they're not exactly thrilled and happy, but I don't want them jumping on the boat like a fish. If a fish jumps on my boat, it's probably poisonous, so I don't want it. So I want to work for it. I want to work, build a relationship, get a rapport, get them to know the leaders, reel them in, and when they come in, it's like, we got it. That was a really good catch. As for the discipline of recruiting, recruiting is hard. It's painful. There's no instant gratification to recruiting. I can build a great relationship with someone for 6, 9, 12 months, and they come 4 months after that. Like that is a long cycle. It's very arduous. And that's why you have to continue to build a pipeline. And you're building a pipeline monthly. So maybe on that 6th month, that person you talked to 6 months ago now wants to come. And then on your 7th month, the person you talked to, on your 2nd month, they might want to come on board. So you have to have a discipline. And it's like anything else. It's like you mentioned working out, right? I treat them the same. I have a plan of how many people I'm going to call today and tomorrow and the next day. I review my plan midweek. That way, I'm just going to make this up. If I was going to call 30 people a day, by Wednesday, it had to have been 90. And if it's 70, trust me when I tell you, I'm telling my wife, we're not going out Friday night. Like, I'm punishing myself. I'm going to work Saturday. I have to, because I've failed my own personal goal. By the time it's Friday, 30 times 5, you should be at 150. If you're at 170, that's awesome. Go out and get yourself a nice meal and enjoy your time, because you deserve it. Go back at it on Monday. And I'm the same way with working out. If I happen to drink, which I don't drink that often, but when I do a lot. So if I drink really hard on a Friday, I promise you my typical 2-hour workout will be a 3.5-hour workout. And my wife's like, it's like you live in the gym. I'm like, no, I'm punishing myself. I destroyed my body and my liver last night. I'm going to punish myself for 2 reasons. One, so I'm more responsible next time and I don't go that hard, because I'll remember this stupid workout I just did. And 2, to literally flush this stuff out. So I'm very big on self-punishment on anything I do. So there is a discipline of recruiting. How many people are you going to call? What is the study on those calls, right? Because for the 30 people you're going to call, you need to have 30 sheets that you went online and you looked them up and you know their numbers. And you can build rapport with them. And then, of course, I got to put 30 people in the system, and I got to write it down and make sure that it's in the system so I can remind them when I put my drip system, my tickler system, so I can tickle them later. And I can remember what we talked about. Like, that 30 calls isn't just 30 calls. It's 30 studies before the call. It's 30 calls, which many of them might be voicemails, so I've got to go back to those. And then it's 30 write-ups to myself. That's a lot of stuff. I'm doing 90 tasks to make 30 calls. So you have to have discipline. You can't just be like, well, I'm going to make some calls today. Not if your goal is to really go. And by the way, you notice I'm not just talking recruiting. That is a loan officer chasing an agent. That is agents chasing buyers. It's the same thing, right? I mean, you have one open house, 30 people, at least in a place like Dallas where it's super warm outside, 30 people will see a house on a Saturday. The agent's job is to follow up with those 30 people. There's only one house they're looking at, but there's 30 potential buyers. You have to follow up those 30 buyers. Now you have to find out who they are, write them up, do all those things. It's the same thing. You have to have a discipline to it.
So you're making all these calls, and I think this is where a lot of people get lost, whether they're looking for people to hire recruiting or whether they're looking for buyers and clients. How do you disarm people when you're making that clear kind of cold call sales call?
I mean, I disarm people by being honest with them. Is if you're never going to make a move and you think you're never going to make a move, maybe I can learn something about you and your business, and I'd like to get to know you. And I'm basically letting them know, look, if you make a move, it's okay. I still want to be on the phone with you. So recruiters and recruiting get such a negative name in this business because they will call you and say, hey, Matt, listen, I heard some great things about you. I'd like to talk to you, to tell you why our company's so great. Dan, I'm not interested. Cool, bye, Matt. And they'll never call you again. And they get 30 recruiting calls from 30 people. And 3 months later, 5 of those 30 called them because the other 25 put them off the list. Like they wanted the instant gratification. Like, you actually pissed me off, Matt, because you didn't want to talk to me. Great, you're off my list. And that shows a lack of discipline, and it shows a lack of relationship building. It's essentially a transaction. So I talk to people and I say, listen, I'm not trying to hire you over the phone. I can't. I physically can't hire you over the phone. I don't know if you would even be good for us or if we'd be good for you. I don't know. Notice I'm like disarming them. Like, listen, man, I'm not armed. I'm not armed. I just want to have a conversation. And usually they're like, okay, well, let's have a conversation. And I don't go in for the kill and, hey, you got to meet us. And, now it's time to make a move. No, I just want to get to know them and know enough about their business, honestly, to make sure that they'd even be right for us. Now, there comes a time where I think, wow, you actually might be right for us. Can we at least do a discovery call next or a discovery meeting face-to-face next? Just, again, not to necessarily make a move, but just so we can get to know even on a deeper level. You'd be surprised when you disarm folks. I mean, the person who's going to instinctively, no matter what you say, if you're the best salesperson ever, if they're going to say no anyway, they're going to say no anyway. So you already have to take those off your list because there's just some people who are just going to turn you off immediately. But if you can disarm someone and let them know, listen, no harm, no foul. I just really, and I've heard good things about you. I mean, I'm looking at some stuff, some amazing numbers. I know you've been with your company for X amount of time. It'll flatter them that you've at least studied who they are. At least you know who they are, and they'll like that. And it reminds me.
One I think too, part of it too is like you have to be genuinely excited to make that phone call. Otherwise, it shows in your voice. And number two, you have to be genuinely open to see where that conversation is going to go. Because if you can be excited and open, you're going to be more teed up to notice the things that are saying that you relate more to figure out, is this person even going to be good for us? But also, like, it's a long-term, this is all about longevity. Like, you're not getting yeses and moves on that first call. Some of these things, like the branches that I've recruited, have taken 6 years.
Yeah.
And is that payoff 6 years out huge? Absolutely. However, like, there's no immediate payoffs in this stuff. And if you can go into it to generally try to make friends and get people to like you, how to win friends and influence people, for instance, it feels good, and you can kind of get some micro enjoyment moments along the way. Like, the journey is part of the reward too, in my opinion.
You have to be passionate about what you do. I've had as many as 30 recruiters report to me, maybe even 40 at some point. And if they're sick, I'm like, don't make calls to them. They can hear it, and they can tell where you're not in the game. We've all been to a ball game where you can see that the best player was not into it. Maybe they partied the night before. Maybe they're having something at home, but you can literally see it. I've been to a concert where the lead singer was not into it that night. They were just going through the motions. You can feel it. It bothers you because you paid a ticket and they just didn't give you their opinion. Well, in recruiting, if I'm like, hey, Matt, how you doing? Hey, just want to see if you want to at least consider making a move or something. And you're like, that wasn't great. No, not really. Okay, thanks, Matt. Like, no way. You got to be in the game and be motivated and excited, and know that recruiting, in any aspect of recruiting, real estate, mortgage, marketing, whatever, recruiting is baseball. It's not football. In baseball, if you go 3 for 10, which is a batting average of 300, you will be in the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about it. In football, if you throw 3 out of 10 passes, you will be benched and you'll never play again. In basketball, if you shot 3 out of 10 from the free throw line, you will be the worst free throw shooter in the history of the game. So recruiting is baseball. You just get 3 out of 10, maybe 2.5 out of 10, and you're pretty darn good. And that's how people need to look at it. I'm going to make 10 calls. I'd like to get 3 good conversations. And that's exciting, because even if they didn't go anywhere, that's 3 more follow-ups you're going to do. You're, of course, still going to follow up the other 7, but they didn't go great the first time. So odds are they won't go great the second time, but you never know. Could change. But you have to think of recruiting as baseball, not any other sport. 3 for 10.
To that perspective, all of real estate, all of sales, all of mortgages, it's all baseball, because you only need to win a very small amount of time to have some crazy, crazy successes. So Dan, we have people listening all around the country. If someone wanted to get a hold of you for some recruiting advice, a specific question, or more of a fun one, if someone knows a loan officer that needs to be part of a better company that does things the right way, how could they get a hold of you?
The best way is through my cell phone, which is 949-456-1032. I'm happy to help talk about recruiting. I'm actually in the process of writing a book, and it's going to cover recruiting as well at some point. And I do some executive coaching, and I do some online physical fitness coaching too, to try to help people with their goals as well. So whatever someone needs, I'm more than happy. I like to call myself 24/7. I sleep 3.5 hours to 4 hours a night because my brain won't let me shut down. And I love it. I just love being awake and love being alive. So if anyone needs anything, they can always reach out.
I love that. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being on the show today.
I appreciate it. Thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend.